The fog of money. 1. Lee King-yoon stood in front of the coal mine warehouse on the edge of the city. The night was deep, and the air was filled with the unique smell of ash from coal. His eyes were like sharp blades, sweeping everything around him, and his body was slightly tense, like a string ready to go. Over the years, as a private security guard, he has protected all kinds of high-end customers, whether it is the underworld, the consortium, or even the government officials. He has never made mistakes. But tonight's goal was different from usual. The person guarding it was actually his father, Lee Tianchi. Lee Tianchi, the rough and bold big coal boss, seems to have nothing but money. In recent years, he has gained a huge fortune due to an accident, but his personality is still simple and rough, his emotions are evident, and he always smells of coal and tobacco and alcohol. Lee King-yoon thought to himself, he must find a way to get the money out of his father's hands, leave a way out for him, and lay the foundation for his future. The night wind blew the iron sheets of the warehouse, making a shrill whistling sound. Lee King-yoon squatted in the shadows and carefully observed his father's movements. Lee Tianchi was busy counting cash, his rough big hands shining faintly in the light. That familiar and unfamiliar light made Lee King-yoon have complex emotions in his heart. He looked at his father calmly, calculating how to safely transfer wealth without letting his father notice anything unusual. At this moment, there was a rustling sound outside the warehouse, and Lee King-yoon immediately lay down, his eyes sharp like an eagle. He realized that this place was not just a guardian, but more like a game with a turbulent undercurrent, and he was already an important pawn on the chessboard. Run. 2. Lee King-yoon recalled his youth. His father's boldness and roughness once made him both love and fear. Lee Tianchi often roared loudly when he was drunk, "No matter how much money you have, it's not worth a life." And the young Lee King-yoon always silently packed up his mood and left home to practice with his bags on his back. He traveled all over the world, learned martial arts from his teacher, and practiced amazing skills. Over the years, he has seen countless masters, and after life and death, his body and mind have long surpassed ordinary people. Today, he returns to his father, not for reconciliation, but to orchestrate what he himself names an operation in parallel with finance and force. Lee King-yoon knew that his father was bold by nature, but he didn't know anything about finance, which was a double-edged sword, both a weakness and an opportunity. He secretly calculated, to transfer the funds safely, he must not hurt his father, but also complete the operation before Shen Yuchen and other covetors attack. Lee King-yoon reached out from the shadows and took out a small detector, close to the ground to scan the surrounding environment. The structure of coal mine warehouses is complex, the ground is dusty, and any slight noise can expose the location. Suddenly, he noticed an abnormal heat source in the corner of the warehouse, as if someone had been squatting for a long time. He frowned, realizing that this night would not only be a guard, but a sophisticated offensive and defensive game. Run. 3. Lee Tianchi focused on the cash in his hand, his big hands flipped between the banknotes, and his rough knuckles were calloused from moving coal for many years. His expression was focused but confused, as if he didn't understand the meaning behind the numbers. Lee King-yoon observed in the shadows, quickly analyzing his father's possible loopholes in his mind. He thought of more than one method. He could use cooperation to design investment plans, set up bureaus to transfer, or even directly and secretly operate accounts, as long as he could ensure that his father was safe and sound. Suddenly, a figure swept through the gap in the iron door of the warehouse, and Lee King-yoon's eyes were cold. The enemy is not only present, but also closer than he thought. He quietly jumped onto the iron frame, his figure like a shadow and lightning, instantly covering his whereabouts and observing the enemy's movements. At this moment, he is no longer just a son, but a stalker, a man who decides the fate of wealth in the dark. Lee King-yoon secretly calculated in his heart, if he succeeds, he will not only be able to protect his father, but also pave the way for himself. If he fails, his father's wealth may fall into the hands of others, and even his life may be in danger. The night wind howled, and his fingers clenched, feeling an unprecedented tension and stimulation. Run. 4. Outside the warehouse, the night was dark and the atmosphere was strange. Lee King-yoon noticed that a group of mysterious figures were quietly approaching, and his nerves were tense. These people were menacing, but Lee King-yoon, with years of martial arts cultivation, easily subdued them outside the warehouse door. During the process, he felt an inexplicable excitement. This was not just a guard, but more like the beginning of a secret contest. My father suddenly walked to the door and frowned slightly. King Yun, what are you doing here? Lee King Yun's heart sank and he smiled slightly. Dad, I'm just looking at your property to make sure it's safe. Li Tianxi laughed boldly. Safety? What is the use of money? Spend whatever you want. Lee King Yun knew that his father's rough nature would not be easily persuaded. He needed more wisdom and patience to gradually direct the funds in a safe direction, rather than relying solely on verbal persuasion. Five. Lee King Yun found intelligence expert So Lifan. Her long purple hair flashed in the night, and her eyes were as sharp as a cat, with a deterrent power that could not be ignored. She quickly analyzed the situation. If you want to get money out, you need not only means, but also psychological warfare. People like your father only show their vulnerabilities when they feel challenged. Therefore, Lee King Yun and So Lifan began to arrange strategies at all levels, fake cooperation, luring investment contracts to be signed, and secretly transferring funds. But his father's business partner Shen Yuchen acted treacherously and his eyes were sharp, eyeing Lee King Yun every step, making the plan full of variables. Lee King Yun knew in his heart that this action was not only a competition for money, but also a contest of psychology and wisdom. In the night, he stood at the top of the warehouse, overlooking everything, his fingers clenched and his eyes firm. At this moment, he understood that his life was already closely linked to his father's wealth and destiny. 6. Lee King Yun decided to directly test his father's psychology. He feigned negligence in his security work and deliberately left a few tiny loopholes in the warehouse. Li Tianxi's eyes were sharp, and he immediately noticed the abnormality, frowned and asked, King Yun, are you lazy? Li King Yun smiled slightly, did not answer, but slowly scanned every corner around the warehouse. At this moment, he was not hiding his actions, but observing his father's reaction. Li Tianxi stared at his son for a long time, and suddenly smiled, this kid is really not simple. For the first time, a trace of respect appeared in my heart, and at the same time I was a little uneasy. Lee King Yun took this opportunity to quietly collect the details of his father's daily financial handling. He found that his father was very dependent on cash flow but had no concept of electronic accounts, which was a key loophole he could exploit. In the night, his eyes were like sharp blades in the dark, and a plan gradually took shape in his heart, first build trust, and then gradually transfer funds. Seven. Lee King Yun secretly sneaked into his father's private account room to get a clearer financial overview. The door lock in the room was complicated, but it was only a moment of effort for him. The moment he opened the door, a heavily armed bodyguard suddenly appeared, holding a shiny steel pipe in his hand. Lee King Yun did not panic, his body was like the wind, and he instantly flashed behind the bodyguard, using a chain lock technique to subdue the opponent to the ground. The bodyguards wailed, but Lee King Yun knew in his heart that every action could leave clues, and Shen Yuchen's men could appear at any time. In the accounting room, Lee King Yun carefully checked his father's asset details and found loopholes and potential risks. He silently recorded every cash and every transfer path. This information will become a central resource for his future operations. Lee King Yun muttered to himself, as long as I can ensure that my father is not injured, I can take the initiative in this wealth game. Eight. Li Tianxi began to have doubts about his son. After several small-scale capital transfers, he noticed something unusual and began to pay attention to King Yun's every move. Lee King Yun is still humble on the surface, but secretly he is as flexible as the wind on the water. He slowly let the father get used to his son's existence, and even guided the father to participate in some fake investments to observe the father's reaction to finances. At the same time, Lee King Yun also noticed Shen Yuchen's movements. The man acted sinisterly, his eyes were sharp, and he could detect every father-son interaction. He must be extra cautious not only to transfer funds safely, but also to avoid threats to his father. Lee King Yun took a deep breath and began to build a larger plan in his mind, fake cooperation, psychological testing, fund dispersion, every aspect must be accurate to the millisecond. Under the night, his figure merged with the shadows of the warehouse, like a cold guardian. Nine. Lee King Yun realized that in order to successfully transfer his father's wealth, it was not enough to operate secretly. He must create a fake crisis for his father to voluntarily divert funds to safe channels. One night, he quietly guided his father out, pretending to pass by a warehouse, and suddenly a small-scale fire broke out. Smoke, fire, and tension fuel the father's emotions, and he accidentally reveals some insurance and banking information amidst the chaos. Lee King-yoon immediately captured this information and was secretly happy. This crisis not only protected my father, but also provided an opportunity for funds to be transferred. He silently thought in his heart, my father's wealth is safe and the guarantee for our future. _____________________________________________________________________________________________________________ 10. So Lifen's eyes were sharp, and he said, King-yoon, this is just the beginning. Shen Yuchen had already begun to realize that you had to speed up the pace, otherwise the opponent would soon have countermeasures. Lee King-yoon nodded, he understood that this battle for wealth was far from over. Father's wealth is not only a number, but also a complex chess game involving power, wisdom, and people's hearts. In the night, Lee King-yoon stood at the top of the warehouse, looking down at the city lights, his eyes flashing with cold light. He knew that every step would determine the future of father and son, and whether he could truly take control of the game. 11. Lee King-yoon secretly monitored his father's whereabouts and found that Lee Tianxi secretly went to a remote corner deep in the warehouse in the early morning. His intuition tells him that there are important secrets hidden here. Lee King-yoon followed silently, shuttling through the tunnel of the coal mine like a black shadow, stepping on the smell of damp soil. Every step was like stepping on thin ice. Lee Tianxi sat at a dilapidated wooden table in the corner, with thick account books and cash on the table. Lee King-yoon observed carefully, his father frowned slightly when he flipped through the account book, and occasionally looked up at the entrance of the warehouse, as if looking for something. This scene made Lee King-yoon realize that although his father was rough, he still had a secret sense of protection against wealth. He quietly placed a miniature camera under the table that could not only record his father's behavior, but also analyze financial vulnerabilities. Lee King-yoon's heartbeat was steady and heavy. He understood that every time he approached, he might be noticed by his father, or it might become a part of a secret contest with Shen Yuchen. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________ 12. Lee King-yoon returned to the warehouse. The night was like ink, and the rain wet his shoulders. He took out his mobile phone to check the information from So Lifen and found that Shen Yuchen was stepping up monitoring the flow of his father's assets. This opponent is scheming and fast, and if he does not plan in advance, his father's wealth will be threatened at any time. Lee King-yoon frowned, thinking about how to deal with it. He decided to take advantage of his father's carelessness to design a fake investment that made his father mistakenly think that he was investing funds in a new project, but in fact he was safely transferring the funds to an overseas account. Every step must be taken carefully, and any negligence can set you on fire. At night, there was a faint echo in the coal mine tunnel. Lee King-yoon walked through it like a ghost, and the familiar breath of mixed soil and coal made his nerves highly concentrated. He knew that this was a contest of wisdom and patience, where his father's trust and his opponent's conspiracy existed at the same time, and every step was full of unknowns. __________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ Lee King-yoon and So Lifen plan an operation in an abandoned office next to the warehouse. They pulled out a detailed map marking every safety exit, every camera location, and the route their father took on a daily basis. So Lifen's fingertips moved quickly on the map. King-yoon, you must complete the fund transfer before your father notices, otherwise Shen Yuchen will notice it immediately. Lee King-yoon nodded. He had already devised a whole set of action plans. First use his father's carelessness to create fake investment opportunities, then transfer funds through underground passages, and finally use small-scale accidents as cover. Every move he makes is like a chess game, and every move may elicit the opponent's reaction. As the sky gradually brightened, Lee King-yoon returned to the warehouse, and his father was counting money without noticing. Lee King-yoon took a deep breath, knowing that the real action was about to begin. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________and using his years of martial arts practice and agility, he loaded the cash into special containers in batches and transferred them to a safe place along the dark passage. The tunnel was damp and narrow, but for him, it was like walking on flat ground, and every step was steady and fast. On the way, an accident occurred, the tunnel partially collapsed, and the rebel rolled down. Lee King-yoon reacted instantly, rolled and dodged, and used the tools at hand to quickly clear obstacles. He broke out in a cold sweat over his forehead, but he didn't dare to stop. because any pause might make his father notice something unusual. In the end, he successfully transferred part of the funds safely to the secret account prepared by Sol Lifen. Lee King-yoon stood at the exit of the tunnel, overlooking the dripping rain outside, secretly glad in his heart, but he knew that this was only the first step, and the real challenge was still to come. _ 15. Lee Tianxi stumbled upon some tiny traces of the tunnel entrance, frowning slightly. He was secretly suspicious and became wary of his son for the first time. But Lee King-yoon behaved calmly, and his father had no way to testify, so he could only suppress his doubts in his heart. Lee King-yoon thought secretly, although his father was rough, he gradually began to be alert and must be more careful. He decided to speed up the pace of action, transfer all funds in batches, and set up false clues to confuse Shen Yuchen and other covetors. Night fell again, and the area around the coal mine warehouse was silent. Lee King-yoon stood on the roof of the warehouse, the rain wet his shoulders, and the cold wind howled by. He stared at the lights of the city, knowing in his heart that this battle for wealth between father and son had really begun. 16. Lee King-yoon realized that his father's carelessness was gradually weakening, and he began to be more vigilant in every move. In order to remain undetected, he decides to use his father's curiosity to design a mind game. One day, he pretended to be organizing equipment in a warehouse and stumbled upon an old document that showed a forgotten sum of money. Lee Tianxi leaned over curiously. Where did this come from? Lee King-yoon said calmly, Dad, this money was originally intended to be used for charity, but it may have been omitted. Lee Tianxi frowned, a trace of doubt flashed in his heart, but he was attracted by curiosity and began to flip through the files. Lee King-yoon took this opportunity to secretly transfer part of the cash to a safe account in batches, while recording his father's psychological reaction. He secretly sighed in his heart. His father's boldness and curiosity are double-edged swords, both obstacles and opportunities. As night fell, the rain was pouring outside the warehouse, and Lee King-yoon stood on a high place looking down, silently thinking in his heart, this psychological game has just begun. _ 17. Lee King-yoon decided to introduce external forces to increase the concealment of the operation. He contacted his former martial arts senior brother Lu Feishan, who is now a black market intelligence merchant and acts secretly and accurately. The two met in an abandoned factory and decided to cooperate after a brief exchange of information. Lu Feishan provided a set of underground passage network maps, which could safely transfer his father's funds to other places while avoiding Shen Yuchen's surveillance. Lee King-yoon secretly calculated the time and route, and every second could affect the success or failure of the operation. That night, the two quietly entered the depths of the warehouse. Lee King-yoon's figure was like the wind, instantly avoiding all surveillance and traps, and safely sending some of the funds to the secret passage. Lu Feishan nodded slightly. King-yoon, you are more stable than I imagined. Lee King-yoon knew in his heart that this was only the first wave of actions in a long-term battle. _ 18. Lee King-yoon arranged for his father to make a fake investment to observe his father's reaction to the operation of funds. Lee Tianxi was unaware and invested part of the funds in a fictitious project. Lee King-yoon smiled secretly. The money had actually been safely transferred overseas. However, Shen Yuchen had already begun to doubt. One night, Shen Yuchen sent several masters to sneak into the warehouse to try to monitor Lee Tianxi's every move. Lee King-yoon appeared like a shadow, subduing the intruder with astonishing speed, and his speed made the enemy unable to detect his presence at all. The father was puzzled in the confusion and asked King-yoon, "What have you done again?" Lee King-yoon just smiled faintly. "Dad, I just make sure that you and the money are safe." Lee Tianxi was secretly surprised, and began to have more trust and more vigilance in his son. _ 19. Lee King-yoon realized that a fake investment alone could not completely safely transfer funds, and a larger plan must be devised. He decided to use the tunnel system of the night coal mine to transport the remaining funds to overseas security accounts in batches. During the operation, the accident happened again. The tunnel partially collapsed, rubble rolled down, smoke and dust filled the entire space. Lee King-yoon responded calmly, rolled and dodged, and used the tools at hand to quickly open up new passages. He silently thought in his heart, every second may determine success or failure. In the end, he successfully sent the funds safely, but the traces of the tunnel collapse made his father begin to doubt. Lee King-yoon had to devise clever reasons to make his father think that this was just a natural condition in the coal mine, so that he would not be suspicious. _____________________________________________________________________________________________________________ but he still had no way to prove it. Lee King-yoon took advantage of this doubt to cleverly design an accidental fire to cover the transfer of remaining funds. The fire, smoke, and chaos kept my father focused on a safe evacuation, while funds had already been quietly dispersed across the country. After the fire, the delicate relationship between father and son became more complicated. Lee Tianchi was puzzled, but he felt a trace of admiration for his son's ability to act. Lee King-yoon understood that he had taken the initiative, but the enemy Shen Yuchen was still waiting for an opportunity in the dark. The night was dark, the warehouse returned to calm. Lee King-yoon stood on the roof overlooking the city lights, silently thinking in his heart, the real war has just begun. 21. Lee King-yoon secretly sorted out all the routes for transferring funds, tunnels, abandoned factories, and underground warehouses. Each route was carefully calculated. At night, he shuttled between the coal mines like a shadow, feeling the smell of damp earth and the smell of coal. The perception ability he has practiced over the years has allowed him to accurately judge whether every corner is safe. Suddenly, a strange movement came from outside the warehouse, and he immediately crouched down and hid in the shadows. Several masters sent by Shen Yuchen quietly approached, their steps silent and fast. Lee King-yoon breathed calmly, tapping his fingers on the short knife on his waist, ready to strike at any time. After a while, he quietly resolved the crisis, and the enemy was unaware, thinking that the night in the coal mine was dark and there was no one in sight. Lee King-yoon sneered in his heart, every time the enemy approaches, it will only make me stronger and more accurate. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________22. Lee Tianchi became more and more curious about his son's actions, and even began to take the initiative to test it. One afternoon, he pretended to sort out the accounts and observed Lee King-yoon's every move. Lee King-yoon was calm on the surface, but secretly he had included every move of his father in the calculation. King-yoon, are you playing some tricks? Lee Tianchi frowned and asked. Lee King-yoon smiled, a hint of cunning flashed in his eyes. Dad, you're too worried, I'm just helping you sort out some information. Although his father's brows were not fully relaxed, a trace of caution and trust began to develop in his heart. Lee King-yoon knew that the first step of psychological warfare was successful, and his father began to slowly accept his existence and was slowly guided into his plan. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________Shen Yuchen has begun to lay out international capital operations, in an attempt to transfer Lee Tianchi's wealth to the name he controls by complex means. Lee King-yoon's heart sank, knowing that if he did not counteract first, his father's wealth would be at great risk. He decided to speed up the pace of his plan and use his father's curiosity and carelessness to devise a more sophisticated fake investment plan. Lee King-yoon carefully analyzes the flow of each fund, calculating the time, method, and possible exposure of each transfer. At night, he laid out new routes deep in the warehouse, tunneling to the abandoned factory and then from underground pipes to secure warehouses. Every detail must be accurate, otherwise the entire plan will be wasted. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________ In the dead of night, he quietly sneaked into Shen Yuchen's office. With years of stealth skills, he evades all surveillance and guards and quickly finds the computer host. The sound of keyboard tapping echoed faintly in the night sky, but he moved extremely fast, cracking the opponent's system and obtaining complete information about the flow of funds. The success of this operation allowed Lee King-yoon to adjust the transfer route of his father's funds in advance and avoid any traps of Shen Yuchen. He secretly sighed in his heart, only by combining wisdom and force can we be invincible in this complex chess game. Lee Tianchi was on the side, unaware on the surface, but faintly aware of his son's extraordinary ability in his heart. For the first time, he felt that this child might be smarter and more stable than himself. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________ He was becoming more and more sensitive, and any action must be more cautious. He decided to create a small-scale emergency that could not only observe his father's reaction, but also cover the safe transfer of funds. At night, a popping sound suddenly comes from the warehouse, smoke spreads, and the father is forced to respond with all his might. Lee King-yoon secretly controlled the situation and sent the funds out in batches through hidden channels. The whole process was thrilling, and my father was completely unable to detect the truth. Afterwards, Lee Tianxi looked at his son and exclaimed in his heart, "King-yoon, what the hell did you do?" Lee King-yoon smiled faintly, "Dad, just make sure you and the money are safe." The distance between father and son has been subtly shortened in this sudden crisis. 26. Lee King-yoon secretly observed his father's daily actions and found that Shen Yuchen had begun to strengthen surveillance and sent people to lurk around the warehouse. This news made him frown. With the slightest negligence, his father's wealth could fall into the hands of his opponents. He decided to take advantage of his father's carelessness and devise a fake financial crisis. Lee Tianxi was informed that there was an abnormality in a fund that needed to be adjusted urgently. In a panic, the father transferred the funds to Lee King-yoon's default safe account, and the whole process was smooth and hidden. Lee King-yoon stood in the dark and sneered in his heart. Every unintentional move of his father became a bargaining chip for him to control the chess game. Although Shen Yuchen was cunning, he was still misjudging the situation at the moment. __________________________________________________________________________________________________________ At night, he sneaked into the coal mine tunnel. His skills were like shadows, and every step was extremely precise. The tunnel was damp and sticky, and the gravel and dust flew with the pace, but for Lee King-yoon, these were insignificant obstacles. On the way, he encountered a sudden collapse, boulders rolled down, and dust shrouded in smoke. He rolled, jumped, and performed the techniques he had practiced for many years to quickly escape danger and safely transfer funds. Every danger is like a test, but Lee King-yoon has long been accustomed to life and death going hand in hand with wealth. At the exit of the tunnel, the night was deep. He looked up at the lights of the distant city, and secretly made up his mind, his father's wealth could not fall into the hands of others no matter what. __________________________________________________________________________________________________________ He found that people seemed to be in and out of the tunnel frequently, and the flow of funds was unusual. My father was entangled in his heart and doubted Lee King-yoon's actions for the first time. Lee King-yoon noticed the subtle changes in his father, and he decided to win his father's trust with his actions first. During a routine inspection, he deliberately left clues to let his father see that the funds were properly arranged. Lee Tianxi's brows furrowed slightly, feeling both puzzled and relieved. All this is the psychological warfare carefully planned by Lee King-yoon. His father's trust was being guided step by step, while Shen Yuchen's eyeliner was still quietly observing in the dark. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ and the three of them formulated a fake hijacking plan. The purpose is to confuse Shen Yuchen and make him mistakenly believe that his father's property is still in the warehouse, thereby diverting attention. The plan was implemented that night, and the warehouse was filled with smoke and chaotic noise. Lee King-yoon used superb martial arts to control the situation and protect his father's safety. Lu Feishan monitored outside, and So Lifan operated the electronic equipment to ensure that every detail was perfect. Shen Yuchen received misleading information and hurriedly dispatched his subordinates, but every step fell into the trap designed by Lee King-yoon. Under the night, the whole situation was like a precision chess game, and the pieces were moving quietly. _____________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ and Lee King-yoon successfully transferred most of the funds safely to overseas accounts. The father was still unaware, but felt that his son was becoming more and more calm and courageous in his actions. Lee Tianxi began to look at his son with admiration, and for the first time he secretly admired it in his heart. This kid is really not simple. Lee King-yoon knew that this was only part of the entire long-term wealth protection plan. Although Shen Yuchen was temporarily confused, he was still a potential threat. In the night, Lee King-yoon stood on the roof of the warehouse, looking at the lights of the city in the distance, silently thinking in his heart, the real competition is not over yet. 31. Lee King-yoon felt that Shen Yuchen's methods were becoming more and more insidious. He decided to adopt a more proactive strategy, a direct strike, confronting them simultaneously with wisdom and force. At night, outside the coal mine warehouse, he set traps and used faint light and sound to lure the enemy into the game. The vanguard sent by Shen Yuchen approached like a shadow, but Li Qingyun had already predicted their movement and was under control at every step. The smoke and coal ash intertwined, covering up Li Qingyun's whereabouts. He flashed like a shadow, subdued the enemy, and disappeared into the darkness silently. On this night, Li Qingyun perfectly integrated strategy, psychology, and force for the first time, and secretly rejoiced in his heart. If this battle can last until the end, he will fully seize the initiative. ______________________________________________________________________________________________________________My father walked into the depths of the warehouse and saw some moving marks, frowning slightly. Li Qingyun cleverly explained that it was caused by the natural settlement of the coal mine, and although his father was skeptical, he did not pursue it. Li Qingyun knew in his heart that his father was becoming increasingly sensitive and needed more ingenious means. He decided to guide his father to participate in a fictitious fund adjustment plan in the form of father-son cooperation, so that the father would feel both involved and completely under his control. The night was dark, and in the coal mine tunnel, Li Qingyun slowly inspected each passage, silently thinking in his heart, his father's trust will be his greatest guarantee and the most dangerous variable. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________ 33. Every fund is diverted, batched, and transferred, and is extremely hidden. Lu Feishan pointed to the map and said, Qingyun, your plan is almost perfect, but be careful, Shen Yuchen is not an ordinary opponent, he will change his strategy at any time. Li Qingyun nodded and said in a deep voice, I am ready to deal with all variables. He knows that every operation is a test of wisdom and endurance. At night, the three of them acted like ghosts, hiding funds safely in various secret locations. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________ 34. Li Tianxi gradually admired his son and began to take the initiative to ask about financial arrangements. Li Qingyun cleverly guided his father to mistakenly think that he was helping to sort out assets, but in fact, every step was to transfer funds to a safe channel. Late at night, his father accidentally mentioned an important investment, and Li Qingyun's heart moved, secretly recording that he was ready to use this fund to complete the final large-scale transfer. The interaction between father and son became subtle. Li Tianxi began to trust his son, but he still had doubts in his heart, while Li Qingyun quietly controlled everything under a stable appearance. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________ 35. Li Qingyun decided to carry out the final round of capital transfer. At night, the coal mine warehouse was shrouded in darkness, and he shuttled between tunnels and dark passages like a ghost, and every fund was safely sent out under precise operation. On the way, an accident suddenly occurred. A master sent by Shen Yuchen broke into the tunnel. Li Qingyun performed a series of stunts, subdued him, and left him in the shadows as a bait to confuse Shen Yuchen. In the end, Li Qingyun stood at the exit of the tunnel, looking at the night sky, secretly glad in his heart. His father's wealth had been safely transferred, while Shen Yuchen was still confused, and the initiative in the chess game was firmly in his own hands. 36. Li Qingyun realized that Shen Yuchen began to be suspicious of the father and son's actions, and he decided to adopt a more covert strategy. At night, he sneaked into the warehouse and carefully inspected all hidden passages to ensure that the funds had been dispersed to a safe location. The ash and damp breath in the depths of the coal mine made him engrossed, careful with every step. At the same time, Li Qingyun arranged fake clues outside the warehouse. Some cardboard boxes were placed at will, disguised as traces of untransferred funds. Shen Yuchen's men mistakenly thought that the funds were still in the warehouse and began to dispatch operations. Li Qingyun smiled secretly. The chess game is completely controlled by himself. _______________________________________________________________________________________________________> 37. Li Tianxi began to have more doubts about his son's actions and tried to inspect the tunnel himself. Li Qingyun arranged for his father to check with him in a timely manner, ostensibly to protect, but in fact to guide his father to pay attention to secret channels, and the real funds had already been dispersed overseas. Although the father's brows were tight, his trust in his son gradually increased. Li Qingyun understands in his heart, the real challenge is not only foreign enemies, but also how to maintain his father's trust without revealing the truth. The night was dark, the sound of dripping water echoed in the coal mine, and he silently inspected each tunnel, thinking about his next move. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________________analyzed Shen Yuchen's movements and devised the next strategy to confuse them. They used electronic equipment to simulate the flow of funds, create misinformation, and guide Shen Yuchen to misjudge. At night, the three of them set up the last round of fake funds routes in an abandoned factory. The combination of smoke, light, and shadow and sound creates a chaotic maze, making it impossible for Shen Yuchen to decipher the real location of the funds even if he mobilizes manpower. Li Qingyun observed in the dark, secretly glad in his heart. His father's wealth was finally safe, and the control of the chess game was firmly in his own hands. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________ But he still didn't fully understand. He asked Li Qingyun, what are you doing? Li Qingyun smiled slightly, with firmness in his eyes, Dad, I just make sure that you and the money are safe. The father was silent for a moment, surprised and admiring in his heart. Li Qingyun understands that this trust is the result of long-term psychological warfare and the key to protecting his father's wealth. In the night, the coal mine warehouse was silent. Li Qingyun stood on the roof, feeling the cold wind blowing on his face, knowing in his heart, the final battle was approaching. ____________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ He infiltrated Shen Yuchen's secret base and used his long-term martial arts practice and intelligence analysis abilities to quietly pass through layers of traps. Shen Yuchen finally appeared, his eyes were sharp, and the masters around him were like clouds. Li Qingyun was unhurried, performing a series of stunts. His body was as agile as a shadow, and every attack was precise and deadly. The two sides clashed fiercely, and the air was full of tension and danger. In the end, Li Qingyun subdued Shen Yuchen with wisdom and strength and took control of the situation. Shen Yuchen was shocked and realized that his long-term plan was completely controlled by a seemingly young security guard. Li Qingyun said coldly, Father's wealth never belongs to you. At night, Li Qingyun stood high on the base, overlooking the city lights, silently thinking in his heart, this battle not only protected his father's wealth, but also protected the future of his father and son. 41. After Li Qingyun subdued Shen Yuchen, the first thing he did was to ensure his father's safety. He quietly returned to the warehouse. Li Tianxi was pondering in the office, his brows furrowed. Qingyun, what did you do? Li Tianxi asked in surprise. Li Qingyun smiled slightly, Dad, everything is safe. Those who want to get involved in your wealth will not have another chance now. Li Tianxi was silent for a moment, a hint of relief flashed in his eyes, and he also felt a little distressed. For the first time, he truly realized that this son, who had left home to practice, was so thoughtful and courageous. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________________Resettlement plan. They spread their father's funds across multiple offshore secure accounts and use fake investments in electronic maze to confuse any potential enemies. Solifen pointed out, Qingyun, this layout is thorough, it is completely impossible for Shen Yuchen to track it. Li Qingyun smiled, Dad's wealth must always be safe. Li Qingyun looked at his father's sleeping back and secretly made up his mind, from now on, he will use wisdom and strength to protect this family. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________________still relied on the strategies provided by Li Qingyun. The relationship between father and son gradually eased, from vigilance to trust to tacit cooperation. Li Qingyun secretly observed every decision of his father and guided him in a timely manner, which not only protected his wealth, but also made his father feel a sense of participation. Qingyun, this kid is really much more sensible. Li Tianxi smiled secretly in his heart, full of respect for his son. At night in the coal mine, the father and son inspected the warehouse together. The wind howled, but it was no longer full of crisis, but more of a tacit understanding and peace of mind. 44. After Shen Yuchen was subdued, his power quickly collapsed. Li Qingyun used this time to clean up potential threats and arrange for his subordinates to release false information to the outside world, causing Shen Yuchen's allies to fall into chaos and prevent them from regrouping. Li Qingyun calmly analyzed the movements of each enemy to ensure the safety of his father's wealth. At night, he stood on the roof of the warehouse, overlooking the city lights, and secretly laughed in his heart. The chess game was decided, and the initiative never really left his hands. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________ over the years. He walked up to Li Qingyun silently and patted him on the shoulder. "Qingyun, thank you, Dad owes you too much." Li Qingyun smiled slightly, his eyes firm. "Dad, this is my responsibility." Between father and son, from estrangement to understanding, finally ushered in the intersection of emotion and trust. Li Tianqi was both relieved and moved, and for the first time, he truly realized that his son's wisdom and courage were far beyond imagination. _______________________________________________________________________________________________________________ The coal mine warehouse has become a security center, and every passage and entrance is monitored and encrypted. The flow of funds is clear and transparent, and no outsider can intervene. Li Qingyun stood in the control room, sliding his fingers across the screen, silently recording every data in his heart. He knew that this was not only the protection of wealth, but also the future of father and son. In the night, the coal mine stands quietly like a guardian, carrying the future of the family. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________asset management knowledge. Although Li Tianqi is rough, his wisdom is gradually awakening. He began to understand the laws of fund operation and also understood that his son's plan was not control, but protection. Li Qingyun smiled and said, "Dad, no matter how much wealth you have, if you don't know how to protect it, it will only be a dangerous burden." Li Tianqi nodded and said in a deep voice, "Qingyun, you child, you have really grown up." Between father and son, true tacit understanding and understanding were finally established. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________________disappeared. Li Qingyun is no longer forced to operate secretly, but can openly manage family affairs with his father. The operation of the coal mine gradually stabilized, and the father's rugged character perfectly complemented the son's wisdom, forming a new cooperation model. At night, warehouses and coal mine tunnels are no longer full of dangers, but symbols of stability and order. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ from home to practice. I used to be alone, practicing martial arts just to survive and be strong. Today, he is not only protecting wealth, but also the future of his father and family." Li Tianqi walked up to his son and patted him on the shoulder. "Qingyun, you have worked hard all these years, Dad has never known." Li Qingyun smiled, his heart calming. "Dad, now, everything is fine." Under the lights of the city, the figures of the father and son were stretched very long, symbolizing that although the road ahead is long, they are no longer alone. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ The coal mine warehouse returned to calm, and the father-son relationship reached an unprecedented understanding and tacit understanding. Li Tianqi sat in the office, looking at the night outside the window, his heart full of peace of mind. "Qingyun, this kid, is really reliable." Li Qingyun stood beside him, his eyes firm, and he silently thought in his heart, the future of his father and the future of the family will be guarded by himself. He understood that this chess game that had lasted for many years had finally come to an end, but the power of protection and wisdom had just begun. The night is deep, the coal mine and the city lights complement each other, and Lee King-yoon's figure is like a guardian, standing by his father and family forever.